What is up, guys? It is Carbob here. So today I'm going to be talking about the three winners and three losers of this NBA offseason. Um, so yeah, let's get it going. First off, we've got the Houston Rockets. I mean, it's kind of clear they added Kevin Durant. I think that Kevin Durant really adds something to the Rockets that they didn't have before, and that's a pure number one scorer. Kevin Durant's still a good defender. Their defense is still going to be great. I expect them to be a 50-win team. I mean, they were a 50-win team last year, so probably like 50, 55. I really like the addition of Clint Capella. Clint Capella, I think, is going to add some really nice depth off of the bench for the Rockets, and he's back in Houston, so that's a reunion that's pretty cool. Now he is coming off the bench at the same time as Steven Adams, but I think Ime Udoka can make it work. He's never been a coach where he has like set lineups. He's always like, oh, like if you ain't on shit today, like get back. So yeah, I feel like Ime is gonna make it work. It is unfortunate that they got rid of Dylan Brooks because I mean, defense, he's a really solid defender. But I mean, when you get Kevin Durant, you can't really pass up oh, we're gonna keep Dylan Brooks. You're just not gonna say that. So they also added Dorian Finney-Smith, who I think provides a really good 3D off of their bench. They have a really solid bench. Like their projected starting lineup is, let's see, Fred VanVleet, Amon Thompson, Tari Eason, um, Kevin Durant, obviously, and then Alperen Şengün, who I think that's a crazy starting lineup. But their bench is really good too. Aaron Holiday's a really solid backup point. Reed Shepard, we'll see. Dorian Finney-Smith, great wing coming off the bench. They also have Uncle Jeff on there, so shout out Uncle Jeff. Hopefully he gets some minutes this season. That'd be really cool. And then it looks like that they have Jabari Smith as like a backup four, and then they have Steven Adams with Clint Capella as the two centers coming off the bench. So I think they had a really good offseason, especially obviously trading for Kevin Durant. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people had them coming out of the West instead of OKC. So yeah. I think one of the biggest losers of this offseason is probably the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm not saying that because I'm a Lakers hater. Go Clippers. But LeBron made it clear that he wants to win another championship before his career ends. LeBron's made it pretty clear that he wants to win a championship in his final years. So, and they didn't really do anything that moves the needle a whole lot. The West is only getting tougher, especially with the Sun, or not the Sun, sorry, the Rockets, especially now with the Rockets having Kevin Durant. The Thunder just came off a championship. They look like the best team in the NBA. Yeah, especially in a really tough West. It's hard because they didn't move the needle. They lost Dorian Finney-Smith, who I thought was really solid for them. They did sign Jake LaRavia, who's like he's good, but I would rather have Dorian Finney-Smith. I think most of us can say that. They did sign DeAndre Ayton to a 2-year deal. I think DeAndre Ayton's solid. He really has not gotten the chance to play at a place that he wants to play at. So I think this will be a good move for him. I don't think that it's like, the big major move that the Lakers were hoping for, and some Lakers fans are saying. Aiden's good, but I don't think he's a needle mover. They re-signed Jackson Hayes after Jackson Hayes. I mean, I guess he didn't say it, but there's a lot of rumors that he didn't want to come back, especially in the role that he was playing, which I don't understand, but I'm not Jackson Hayes, so I guess I don't have to understand. Like I said, I don't think the Lakers move the needle necessarily enough. Uh, so we might, see LeBron request a trade in a couple weeks. I don't think so because I think he wants to play with his son too. So, which he did for a season, I guess. But I'd say they're one of the losers of the offseason. Let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks. I think they're one of the biggest winners of this NBA free agency. They got Kristaps Porzingis in return for they I guess they traded Terrence Mann to a different team. It was a 3-team deal. They traded him to the Nets. But they let go of Terrence Mann and Georges Niang and 2 second-round picks, I believe it was, for Kristaps, which I do think he moves the needle for Atlanta, especially with Trae Young. The team might be deadly. They also added Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was one of the hottest free agents. I really wanted the Clippers to get him, but it's not how the cookie crumbled. It's okay. They signed him to a 4-year deal. So he's going to be there for a little bit, hopefully. He's really solid off the bench, and even if he needs to make a few starts, I really think that moves the needle. In a weak East, I think that Kristaps and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I didn't even mention Luke Kennard yet. Luke Kennard is a really good scorer off the bench. That Grizzlies team last year, before they fired Taylor Jenkins, he was almost averaging 10 points per game, and it was barely getting any minutes. That whole bench was almost averaging 10 points per game. Luke Kennard is really solid, and I think he's really underrated in my opinion. Did lose Clint Capella, Karis LeVert, and Larry Nance Jr. The additions outweigh the departures. Those are 3 really solid role players, but they got a 7'3" sniper with Kristaps Porzingis. Granted, health, we'll see how that goes. And then Luke Kennard, sniper, and Nikhil Alexander Walker, again, really, really solid bench piece. One of the best bench pieces in the NBA, or starter if he needs to be. So I think ultimately the Hawks kind of move the needle. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know about coming out of the East yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people had them go to the conference finals because they're a really solid team. Now, one of the other losers I think in this class is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis wants a championship team around him. You are a championship contender if you have Giannis Antetokounmpo on your team, no questions about it. But so Giannis wants a championship contending team. So what do? They release Damian Lillard. Still doesn't make sense to me, but it's okay. And then they also lost Brook Lopez to the Clippers. They lost Brook Lopez, and I think that that's actually a lot bigger loss than people think. He may be old. Was he 37? He's still really good at his position, especially he's a really good shooter still. He's still a good shot blocker. He's never been the rebounder, which is okay. But yeah, they lost two key pieces, one being Damian Lillard. They lost two of those key pieces and didn't add anything. They did I'm sorry. They did add Miles Turner, which I will say that was a good move, but it would have been a better move if they didn't release Dame. It doesn't make him a championship contender this year if they would have kept Dame, but I mean after Dame's Achilles tear, if they would have kept him and Miles Turner's on that team for I believe 4 years, um, that team could have made some noise. They also did add Vasily Micic and Gary Harris, which again don't move the needle for me, and it doesn't move the needle for Giannis. Again, same thing as the Lakers. I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis asked for a trade out, but I do think it's more likely than LeBron asking for a trade out. All right, let's talk about our final winner, the Denver Nuggets, who I think were one of the biggest winners of this free agency class. About an hour after free agency started, they actually traded Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson, who I think that's phenomenal. I think Cameron Johnson brings similar things to what Michael Porter Jr. brought to the table, um, except on a much cheaper deal. They got out of the Michael Porter Jr. deal, which I think is huge. They also got out of the Dario Saric contract, so I think that's also a good thing. They added Jonas Valanciunas. I don't think that he's actually going to end up playing for the Nuggets. From what I've heard, he might be going to Greece. Um, so I mean, shout out Valanciunas, get your bag, bro. They also added Bruce Brown, who's back on the Nuggets. He was great during their championship run, and he's been great ever since. I think adding him brings a lot to this team, especially because a lot of people are familiar with him on this team. So it's a nice little reunion. I also brought in Tim Hardaway Jr. I thought that was a great acquisition. He is he's Tim Hardaway Jr. You know who Tim Hardaway Jr. is. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. was a really good addition. I don't think that it's top of the line, but I think he's a really good depth player. All in all, they only lost. I'm not only, but they lost Michael Porter Jr. and Dario Saric, which those are two huge contracts that they needed to get off of, and they got decent return. Jonas Valanciunas, like I said, probably not going to play, but they're off of Dario Saric's contract. He's basically a salary dump anyway. Michael Porter Jr. That contract was way too big for what he was doing, especially towards a team that, with him might not be going anywhere, especially after his playoff performance this year. Yeah. Unfortunately, I do think that the Boston Celtics were one of the biggest losers of this year's free agency class. They added Georges Niang from the Hawks, who I think is solid, but they gave him up for Kristaps. I'll get to that in a second. They got Luka Garza, doesn't move the needle. Josh Minott from the Timberwolves. He's solid, I think. So Anthony Simons, he was part of the Drew Holiday trade. I think he's really solid. He's gonna provide a lot of scoring off the bench or maybe even starting. I'm intrigued to see what the Celtics look like this year. With Tatum being out, the departures were Drew Holiday, Luke Cornett, and Chris Porzingis. They lost Drew Holiday, which I think isn't a huge deal, but I mean it does suck. He's still a solid defender. He's still a good player. They traded him for Anthony Simon, so I don't think that's a huge deal. But what I do think is a huge deal is them losing Kristaps and only getting Georges Niang and 2 second-round picks out of it. His value could not have been that low, and I mean that. Kristaps is still a guy that can provide you really solid scoring. I mean, he's 7'3" and can shoot. I mean, he can provide you with some scoring. He can provide you with rebounding. He's a good defender. He's a good shot blocker. It sucks that you lose Kristaps in this situation and don't really add anything to replace him because they also lost Luke Cornett, who I think. I mean, it's Luke Cornett. He's a decent NBA player. He's solid in the paint for sure. I think that losing him does suck too, especially when losing Kristaps at the same time. And it sounds like that they're about to lose Al Horford to Golden State. Shout out to Golden State for that because I think that's actually a really solid move. If they do end up signing Al Horford, especially with Kevon Looney going to the Pelicans, crazy by the way. I'm actually going to mention one more winner just because I want to. It's my video. I think that the Hornets were I wouldn't say huge winners, but I think they were winners of this year's free agency class. They had a Pat Connaughton. It's Pat Connaughton. Sure. But they added Spencer Dinwiddie and Colin Sexton, who I think are really both solid scorers. Dinwiddie's still a solid scorer, especially off the bench, so I really think that it's not a bad pickup. Colin Sexton, the young bull, provides a really good score next to LaMelo, so we'll see how that goes. I am, and this is going to sound weird, I'm excited to watch the Hornets this year. I watched a couple, not a couple, I watched actually probably 20, 25 Hornets games last year. They're not like a boring team to watch by any means. I mean, when LaMelo's off the floor, I mean, they're not fun. But with Sexton being there, I think that he provides a really good scorer next to LaMelo. So I think that this might be a fun team to watch, especially adding my boy, Plum Dog Millionaire, Mason Plumlee. Good solid backup big. So they also signed Trey Mann for a 3-year, $24 million deal, which I think is really nice. $8 million a year for a really solid backup piece. I mean, I guess we haven't seen too much of him, especially last year. He didn't. I think he played a single-digit amount of games, but he was really solid the year before that. He got traded from OKC to Charlotte, and I thought he played really well. And I think that $8 million a year for 3 years is a really good deal for a guy of his caliber. That is the biggest winners and losers of this free agency, in my opinion. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments. I hope that this entertained you, and yeah, I'll see y'all later.